The reactor core screamed as Marcus Thorne ripped out the tertiary coupling, and the most powerful warship in the Kethrani Empire went dark. Core breach contained, the emergency system announced in that infuriatingly calm, Kethrani voice. Vessel non-operational, life support on reserves. Thorne dropped the coupling and leaned against the reactor housing, breathing hard. His hands were burned, Kethrani tech ran hot, and his infiltration suit was half melted. But he'd done it. One man against a dreadnought, and he'd actually done it. The Pale Vengeance, flagship of Admiral Sireth, dead in space. Now he just had to not get killed before extraction. Engineering teams to reactor level, security to all access points. The voice on the intercom was female, cold, and absolutely furious. The human saboteur is still aboard. Find him. Thorne moved. The maintenance corridors of a Kethrani dreadnought were tight for human bodies, but manageable. He'd studied the schematics for 3 months. Left at the junction, down the thermal shaft, across the E. He rounded a corner and stopped. She was waiting for him. Admiral Sireth was smaller than he'd expected from the intelligence photos. Maybe 6 feet, compact for a Kethrani female, but she radiated authority like a physical force. Her silver-white skin was marked with the ritual scars of 100 victories, and her pale blue eyes were absolutely, terrifyingly calm. She was also alone and holding a pulse pistol aimed at his head. Marcus Thorne, she said. Terran Naval Intelligence. Specialist in infiltration and sabotage. Responsible for the destruction of 3 Kethrani supply depots, the assassination of War Commander Veth, and now this. She gestured with her free hand at the darkened corridor. My ship. In my defense, Thorne said, the supply depots were legitimate military targets, and War Commander Veth, he was going to execute 2,000 prisoners. I considered that worth stopping. He was my brother. Well? That complicated things. Thorne slowly raised his hands. His sidearm was still holstered. He'd been relying on stealth, not firepower, and he had exactly 0 chance of drawing before she killed him. Admiral, I'm not going to apologize for stopping a war crime. If that means you shoot me, then shoot me. You have an unusual approach to negotiation, Mr. Thorne. I've been told that before. Usually right before someone tries to kill me. Sireth studied him. The pulse pistol didn't waver, but she wasn't firing either. My ship is dead, she said. 37,000 crew. The pride of the Imperial fleet. Dead because one human crawled through our maintenance shafts like vermin. I prefer resourceful operator, but sure. 4 hours of life support. Even if I call for rescue now, the nearest vessel is 6 hours away. Her eyes narrowed. You have killed us all, Mr. Thorne. Every soul on this ship. Thorne felt the weight of that settle on him. He'd known the risks of his mission. He'd known the ship would be disabled. But 37,000. There should be emergency generators, he said. Backup systems, which you also sabotaged, according to my engineering reports, quite thoroughly. Dan. He'd been too good at his job. Then I'm dead too, he said. Small comfort, I know. No, you are not dead. Sireth lowered her pistol, not holstering it, but no longer aimed at his skull. You are going to fix what you broke. Excuse me, you disabled my ship. You will re-enable it. Admiral, with respect, I spent 3 months learning how to destroy these systems. I have no idea how to repair them. Then you will learn quickly. She stepped closer, and he could see the controlled fury in her eyes. Because if my crew dies, I will ensure you die with them, slowly, and with complete awareness of every moment. And if I fix the ship, then I will consider not executing you immediately. Her smile was sharp. I might even be impressed. Thorne had been in bad situations before. It came with the job, but working alongside Kethrani engineers to repair the damage he'd caused was a new experience entirely. The reactor chamber was chaos. Smoke, sparking conduits, and engineers shouting in a language his translator could barely keep up with. Sireth had given him a security escort, 4 armed guards who looked like they wanted nothing more than to shoot him, and access to the engineering teams. The tertiary coupling, the chief engineer said, examining the component Thorne had ripped out. You didn't just remove it. You corrupted the connection matrix. Thermite paste in the socket, Thorne admitted. Standard sabotage technique. Standard. The engineer looked like he might actually explode. Do you have any idea what that coupling does? Regulates plasma flow to the secondary containment field. Which means without it, the reactor can't restart safely. Thorne rubbed his burned hands. I know. That was the point. The point was to kill us all? The point was to stop this ship from reaching Terran space. He met the engineer's eyes. You were carrying enough firepower to glass 3 colonies. I made a choice. The engineer stared at him, then laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. You humans. You really believe you're the heroes of every story, don't you? No. I believe I'm a soldier who did his job. The heroism is optional. Admiral Sirath appeared at his shoulder, silent as death. Progress report, she demanded. The coupling is destroyed, the chief engineer said. We can fabricate a replacement, but it will take 12 hours. We have 3 hours of life support remaining. Then we need an alternative power source. Thorn looked around the reactor chamber, mind racing. He'd spent 3 months learning to break this system. Now he needed to learn to fix it in 3 hours. Your escape pod, he said suddenly. What? Your personal escape pod guy? Command grade. It has its own independent power supply, right? Enough to sustain life support for one person for 30 days? Sirath's eyes narrowed. You know a great deal about Kethrani command vessels. I know a great deal about a lot of things. Can it be done? The chief engineer was already working through the calculations on his tablet. The power output is sufficient, he said slowly. But the integration would require bypassing the primary distribution network and routing directly through the emergency grid. Thorn was moving toward a control panel. We'd lose weapons, propulsion, most secondary systems. But life support would hold. You would need to physically connect the pod's reactor to our distribution system. From the inside. I know. I'll do it. Sirath grabbed his arm. Why? She demanded. You came here to destroy this ship. Why save it now? Because 37,000 people is too many. He met her eyes. Even enemy people. Even Kethrani. I'm a soldier, Admiral. Not a murderer. She held his gaze for a long moment. My brother was a murderer, she said quietly. He would have executed those prisoners without hesitation. When I learned what you had done, I was relieved. Her grip on his arm tightened. I tell you this because I want you to understand. I do not hate you for killing him. I hate you for being right when he was wrong. That's complicated. Yes, it is. She released him. Go. Save my crew. We will discuss what comes after when there is an after. The next 2 hours were the longest of Thorn's life. The escape pod was small, barely room for one person, and the compact reactor that would sustain them. He had to work in a space designed for Kethrani, which meant his human proportions were constantly in the way. The power coupling was behind 3 layers of shielding. The distribution conduit required physical manipulation while live current ran through it. He got shocked. Badly. Twice. But at the 2-hour 40-minute mark, the lights came back on. Life support stabilized, the emergency system announced. Estimated survival time, 47 hours. Thorn sagged against the pod's reactor housing, too exhausted to feel triumph. His hands were worse now, 3rd-degree burns across both palms, and his heart was doing something irregular that probably wasn't good. Sirath found him there. You did it, she said. I did it. My medical team is coming. They will treat your injuries. And then? She was quiet for a moment. I disabled her warship's core. She offered me command instead of prison, she said, almost to herself. That is what the old stories would say. The enemy who becomes an ally through trial and courage. Admiral, you have committed acts of war against the Kethrani Empire. By law, I should execute you or imprison you for life. She crouched beside him, bringing her eyes level with his. But you also saved 37,000 of my people when you could have let them die. It was my fault they were in danger. Yes. And you fixed it. When my own engineers said it was impossible. She reached out, touching his burned hands with surprising gentleness. You interest me, Marcus Thorn. I do not often find humans interesting. I'll take that as a compliment. You should. She stood. When you have recovered, we will speak again. About your future. My future as your prisoner. Your future as my consultant. She smiled, and it was the first genuine expression he'd seen from her. I find myself in need of someone who understands human tactics. Someone who can think like an infiltrator. You want me to work for you? I want you to work with me. There is a difference. She turned to leave, then paused. My brother was wrong about the prisoners. He was wrong about many things. I have begun to wonder what else my people have been wrong about. That sounds like dangerous thinking for a Kethrani admiral. Perhaps. But then, I have just spent 3 hours watching a human repair a ship he destroyed, using nothing but ingenuity and determination. Her pale eyes held his. It makes one reconsider one's assumptions. 3 weeks later, Thorn was still on the Pale Vengeance, no longer as a prisoner, but in a position that defied easy classification. Sirath had given him quarters, access to the ship's technical libraries, and a security detail that now seemed less like guards and more like assistants. They still watched him constantly, but there was a new quality to their attention. Respect, maybe. Or curiosity. The crew's attitude had shifted too. Word had spread about the human who sabotaged their ship and then saved it. The Kethrani had complex feelings about that kind of narrative. Their culture valued cunning and redemption in equal measure. You have become something of a legend, Sirath told him during one of their now regular meetings. The human who broke the vengeance and then healed it. I'm not sure I'm comfortable being a legend. Comfort is rarely a factor in legend creation. She was reviewing tactical displays, part of her ongoing effort to understand human military doctrine. Tell me about the ambush at Kepler Station. That was 2 years ago, and still discussed in our war colleges as an example of impossible victory. She looked at him. 50 humans against a Kethrani assault force died. You should have been annihilated in minutes. Instead, you held for 18 hours. We had good defensive positions. You had a cargo bay and some shipping containers. Her eyes narrowed. What you had was a leader who thought differently. That was you, wasn't it? Thorn didn't answer directly. The memories of Kepler were still painful. All the friends he'd lost, all the choices he'd made that haunted him. I did what I had to do. Yes, that is what makes you interesting. Sirath set down her tablet. I have been thinking about our situation, Marcus. About what I want to propose. I'm listening. The war between our peoples has reached a stalemate. Neither side can achieve decisive victory, and the casualties continue to mount. Millions dead. Colonies destroyed. Entire ecosystems rendered uninhabitable. I'm aware. Are you also aware that a faction within the Kethrani High Command is pushing for escalation? They want to use extinction-level weapons against Terran core worlds. Thorn felt his blood run cold. They can't be serious. They are entirely serious. And they have significant support. Sirath stood, moving to the viewport. Beyond it, stars wheeled slowly past. I am not part of this faction. I believe the war should end, not because I love humanity, but because continued conflict serves no purpose but destruction. What are you suggesting? I am suggesting that we work together. Not as prisoner and captor, not even as consultant and commander. As partners. She turned to face him. You understand both sides of this war. You have fought as a soldier and operated as an intelligence agent. You know how humans think. I know how Kethrani think. You want to end the war. I want to prevent genocide. The war's ending would be a pleasant side effect. Her expression was intense. I cannot do this alone, Marcus. My own people would consider me a traitor. I need someone who can operate in spaces I cannot reach. You are asking me to become a double agent. Against my own species. I am asking you to become an agent for both species. To work toward a peace that saves lives on both sides. It was insane. It was treasonous. It was probably impossible. It was also the first genuine chance at peace Thorn had seen in 10 years of war. What would I have to do? The assassination attempt came 3 months later. Thorn had been working with Sirath on what they privately called the Peace Protocol, a series of coordinated actions designed to undermine the Extinction faction and create conditions for negotiation. It was delicate work, dangerous work, and they'd both known from the beginning that discovery meant death. They'd been discovered. The command deck is sealed, Sirath said, her voice calm despite the situation. My own officers have turned against us. How many? 14. They have control of weapons and communications. Thorn checked his borrowed Kethrani sidearm. Full charge. Not that it mattered much against 14. There's a maintenance access point behind the tactical station, he said. It's tight, but we can reach the escape pods, and go where? Every ship in the fleet will be hunting us within the hour. Then we find a ship that isn't in the fleet. Marcus, Sirath, I spent 3 months learning to break this ship. I've spent 3 more learning how it works. Trust me. She looked at him, really looked, in a way that went beyond tactical assessment. I have trusted you with my career, my reputation, and my vision for the future of my people, she said. Why would I stop now? They moved. The maintenance shaft was exactly where Thorn remembered, and Sirath proved surprisingly adept at maneuvering through tight spaces. They emerged in the auxiliary bridge, which was mercifully empty. The shuttle bay, Thorn said, already working on the console. I can slave the shuttle controls to this station. They will see to launch. They will pursue. Not if they're dealing with other problems. He keyed in a sequence he'd been saving for exactly this kind of emergency. Remember when I said I didn't know how to repair Kethrani systems? Yes? I lied. A little. The lights flickered throughout the ship. What did you do? I installed a back door in the repair I made to the reactor. Just in case. He smiled grimly. Right now, the Extinction faction officers are dealing with a cascade failure in their weapons systems. They've got about 20 minutes to fix it before the ship becomes a very large paperweight. You sabotaged my ship. Again. I installed an insurance policy in my repair work. There's a difference. Sirath stared at him, then laughed, a genuine sound, full and warm. I disabled her warship's core. She offered me command instead of prison, she quoted. And now you have disabled it again. What should I offer you this time? Right now, a ride off this ship. The shuttle bay was chaotic, crew members running in every direction, alarms blaring. No one paid attention to an admiral and her human consultant making their way to a shuttle. They were in the air before anyone realized what was happening. Pursuit will come, Sirath said, taking the controls. We have perhaps an hour, then we use that hour well. Thorn was already working on the communications array. I have contacts in Terran intelligence who've been waiting for something like this. People who believe in peace. They can give us safe harbor. You would bring me to your people? I would bring us to people who share our goals. He looked at her. This isn't about Terran or Kethrani anymore, Sarith. It's about stopping a war that will destroy both our species. She was quiet for a long moment. When I first found you in that corridor, she said finally, I intended to kill you. You had destroyed my ship, murdered my brother, humiliated everything I had built. I remember. But you looked at me without fear, without hatred. You looked at me like I was a person, not an enemy. She reached out, touching his face with cool fingers. I have commanded fleets. I have won victories that changed the course of the war. But no one has ever looked at me the way you do. How do I look at you, like you see me? Not the admiral. Not the warrior. Me. He. Her amber eyes held his. Is that a human quality? This ability to see through rank and species and all the things that should divide us, I think it's a person quality. Some people have it. Some don't. You have it. In abundance. She turned back to the controls. Set your course, Marcus Thorn. I will follow wherever you lead. Partners, partners. The shuttle slipped into hyperspace, leaving the pale vengeance and everything it represented behind. Ahead of them was uncertainty, danger, and a war that might still destroy everything they were trying to save. But for the first time in a decade, Thorn felt something he'd almost forgotten. Hope.